Salutations, Make and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vergil's third Eclogue, lines 55 through 59. But first, last time in Vergil's Eclogue, here is our rubric. Let's get started. Dicite, quando quidem in mole concedimus urba, et nunc omnis ager, nunc omnis parturit arbos, nunc frondent silvae, nunc formosissimus anus, incipe dar moita, tul diende sequere menalca, alternes dicetis, amant alterna camenae. There's not an R there yet. Well, there's not an R there anymore. Complicated. We'll get to that. Sorry about the state of my hands. Tires don't change themselves. So our very first word, Plaimon, who is now responding to the request that he judge for them, is our verb. We've got the iota tau epsilon ending, the iota being the final vowel of our verb. It's in the present tense. You can see because dico, dicere, dixi, the C would change into an X. The TE tells us that it's an imperative, so second person, plural, present, active, imperative. And then we have this interesting word, quando quidem, so it's from quando and then quis quid with the dem ending, or I guess it's qui quae with the dem ending. This together is an adverb, and it means something like since indeed or seeing that. So because concedimus is our verb, we've got prepositional phrase here, we'll come to in a minute. Concedeo, no, not concedeo, considere. This E indicates that the stem has become perfect, and the E is long. So it comes from concedo. I think the I is long, of course the O is long. Mus ending, that would be first person plural, perfect tense, active, and indicative. And this means sit down together, settle down together, because we got con, with, and then sedo, which I think is itself, yeah, sedeo is a second conjugation. So it's interesting that with the prepositional prefix, it's changed into a third conjugation. But anyway, our prepositional phrase, I closed it off with moli, but note that urba is just standing alone, and we know that urba is a first declension, which means it's feminine. So the only two options with this form are nominative singular or ablative singular. We can't have the nominative singular, we've already got our subject in the verb, so ablative singular is the only option. Well, then what is it doing? We go back to our prepositional phrase, and moli, from mollis, mollis, I want to say it's mollis, mollis, is a adjective. It can't really stand alone, but it is also an ablative form, or in dative form. Modifying urba makes some sense. It's a little bit unusual to have the verb in there, but this is both rustic speech that we have all throughout the eclogues, and it's poetic together. So normal forms do not count. So prepositional phrase continues here, and cross that out, with concedimus sitting in the middle of it, plus ablative, singular, feminine, adjective. And moli means soft, so they're sitting in the soft grass. Moving on into line 56, I find it interesting that they're sitting down to do the poetry contest. But then again, when you're doing a contest, you don't want emotions to be heated, and human beings tend to be less heated in conversation when they're sitting down than when standing up. So I suppose that makes some sense. As the impartial judge, he's doing a pretty good job already preventing the inevitable argument between our two other characters. And now omnis, this is the first part of the noun, or not noun, adjective, so don't need to parse it, it's already nominative singular. And ager, modifying that noun, so field, masculine, That's really all we need to note for that. Nunc omnis again, but this time we have arbos as the noun with omnis. Arbos is an unusual word. It comes from, it comes as a variation of, what is it, arbor, arboris, and it is masculine or feminine depending on who's using it. We don't have a gendered adjective here to tell us which of the two that Vergil intends, so I'm just going to write down both of them, and it means tree. Curiously, the accusative, even with the arbor, appears to sometimes be arbosem, which doesn't make sense with arbor arboris. It should be arborem, but instead it takes the stem from this variation of it. So it's weird. It doesn't really have much to do with here. Parturit, nominative, singular, masculine or feminine. Omnis modifying it, not the verb. Parturit, this comes from partur. Am I going to get this right? Parturo, parturio, parturire, I think. This is a fourth io, and we have the present stem with partur, it for third person singular, and active and indicative naturally. It means to desire to bring something forth. Is often used of women who wish to give birth to their children. It can also mean to meditate on, to brood over. And I think we could go with just about any of these. What might be what that Palaimon is saying is that all the nature around them is eager for these poems to be brought forth, or they are eager to meditate upon the poetry that Demoichus and Menalcas are going to be giving. So Palaimon's really building this up, even though he just showed up on the scene. So I'm going to write down two options: desire to bring forth and meditate. Then into line 57, nunc again, now frondent, we have frondeo. This is a second conjugation, so we know it's present stem, present tense also, third person plural due to the nt. And then we have our verb with sil y, ae for nominative, plural, feminine. This is forest. So we got field, tree, forest. Interesting choice going through to represent everything. Almost expect river, but he didn't do that. And I don't know if the Greek bucolic literature that Vergil's drawing from refers to rivers. Maybe they don't. Probably not. But frondent means to leaf, to bud, to become green. Bud might not be the right word because that's referring to flowers. So that's what's happening in there. Now the trees presumably also desire, and they bring forth their green leaves in anticipation of the poetry. Now for mo, some versions have an N in there. With the N or without the N, it is still correctly spelled. There's not great consistency in Latin for a lot of words. Variation spellings like arbos, like this name, which we'll get to in a minute. But this means most beautiful. So we know you got the isse. Issimus is the superlative ending, so nominative is the US, singular, masculine, also again because of the US, and it's modifying anus, which we see there, soup. Anus is our noun, it means year. Now the most beautiful year, most finely formed, formi, is from what this comes from. Then we have a verb to begin this sentence, incipio incipere. So this is a third io, if I'm remembering it correctly. So it's io, but then the infinitive is ere, and there's no I after inc. With the e right there, we see that this is the present stem without any personal endings, which then tells us it is the second person singular, present, active, imperative. Making a difference from the plural we had there down to an individual to begin the contest. And Palaimon chooses Demoichus, though curiously we have a variation of spelling with the R. The green and yellow doesn't have the R, but Perseus does have the R, hence it being in here. And let's see who spoke last. I don't remember. Yeah, Demoitos was the last one to speak, so Pallaemon chooses him to begin. Demoitos was the one who asked Pallaemon, I think, to judge them. And so he gives Demoitos the first go at this. And I don't know if that gives him an advantage or not. I suppose it depends on the judge. And we'll see what happens. But Darmoita is our vocative singular masculine. It's Greek. If I could remember the Greek form, it would probably make some sense why it's turned into an A rather than something else. And we also have Manalka afterward is another vocative singular masculine to the same Greek A. But you then, adverb, sequere. This is from sequor. We have a deponent verb and a variation of the future ending. So we have ost mustis unt, but in the deponent, sorry, not that's active. Ris ter mer many inter. The ris ending in the infinitive, not in the infinitive, in the imperative and in the indicative for the deponent sometimes switches over to ere. I don't think we want the imperative. I think an imperative. No, that's right. An imperative would look exactly like this, but I think we've instead got the future. Which I suppose is ero, eris turning into ere. That was too many words to explain the simple thing. But ere, second person singular, present stem, but future tense, deponent, indicative. Then you will follow Menalcas. Alternus dicatis, we have plural verb again. This is dico, dicere. Third conjugation. Changing tires has exhausted my brain in addition to my body, apparently. With the E rather than the itis, this tells us we have the future tense again, so you will follow Menalcas. You will speak. Second person plural, future, active, indicative. Alternus, this is alternus so the is is either a dative or an ablative plural. The dative doesn't make much sense, so instead ablative of manner by alterations, that is one after the other. That's what we have going on here. And since it's a undefined concept, neuter is how we should treat that word there, an additional adjective modifying it. Then our final clause, amant. The A there is pretty clear. Present stem, present tense, no need to parse it. And then alterna, just confirming what I already said about alternus. That is the accusative plural neuter. As the object of amant, because kamenai with the AE, genitive singular, dative singular, nominative plural. Amant doesn't need a dative. Kamenai would not be owning alternations. That doesn't make much sense. Kamenai is a proper noun, so nominative plural is the best sense for that, and I'll explain what I understand of the form momentarily. So my brief research into the meaning of Kamenai, I think it was the little and short, indicated that it's from the Latin term Carmen. So there was an R after the A initially, and it just dropped out. And the argument that Short had is that it is related to the Greek words for who the Carmeni and the Kamenai are, and that's the muses. So muse comes from the Greek musa, which is also their term, musa, muses, for song. And Carmen is the Latin word for song. So rather than transliterating musa, which Vergil could do, he went to Latin and did the equivalent thing with their name. I don't know if this is a common Latin name for the muses, or if Vergil is coining it here or coined it somewhere else in one of his other writings. But that's what the short indicates, is the origin of Kamena. It's just the R dropped out, possibly because it was used. This is my guess. Possibly because it was used in Darmoita. Vergil could be indicating that Palaimon's way of speaking is different even from the locals. So he's transposed R into a different name. Again, pure guesswork. Green and yellow says nothing about that. As far as I'm aware, short says nothing about that. Just a guess. But that, I think, is where Kamena comes from. And it just means the muses, the songs. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in its own context. Speak, seeing that in soft grass we have sat together. Even now every field, now every tree desires to meditate. Now trees grow green, now is most finely formed year. Begin, Darmoitos. Then you will follow, Menalcos. You will speak by turns. Alternations, song goddesses, love. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.